Okay, guys, so we got to do cranial nerves. And I know most of you have memorized in order. Some of you are like, okay, I'm going to go look up other videos. That's fine. That's great. But I'm going to have fun with this. There's going to be some that are a little bit boring. You just have to memorize. And then there's going to be others that you're like, oh my goodness, I remember this 20 years later. So here's how we're going to play around with it. So here's the cranial nerves, and I will go over that list after we're done memorizing all of them. So we're going to memorize them randomly. And since you guys can't communicate with me and you can't tell me which ones, I'm going to pick the boring ones first, and then we're going to do the fun ones later. So the first one is not so boring, but you know what? This is probably not PC. I'm going to do it anyway. Um, so I don't do drugs. That's my qualifier, but I don't need it. Who needs drugs, right? So here we go. We're just gonna do this. You'll feel me. Okay, so there's two cranial nerves. Can you imagine what the first one is? Well, how many noses do you have? I have one nose, and what is it used for? It's for breathing and smelling, right? And then, well, not for breathing, it's for smelling. And then I have two eyes. So the second cranial nerve is for vision. So let's name the first two. Cranial nerve 1 is called olfactory. I just think of it as little old stinky factory. And then cranial nerve 2 is called optic. Horrible way to teach it, right? That's how you're going to remember it. Remember we said it was emotional. So I have olfactory, one little nose, and I have optic, two little eyes. So let's just go through some of them. So ladies, you know, if you had enough money and you wanted to pamper yourself every single day, 7 days a week, what would you get? I would get a facial, right? So cranial nerve 7 is also known as the facial nerve. What is it associated with? Multiples of facial expression. Okay, so here we go. Cranial nerve done. 7, done. So 1, 2, 7, done. And what is the 8th letter in the alphabet? You guys are all academic, but you don't remember your alphabet, right? You're like, oh, A, B, C, D. Huh? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Excuse me? Cranial nerve 8, huh? What? Huh? I don't hear you. So it's cranial nerve 8, H for hearing. So cranial nerve 8 is associated with audition or auditory. So it's called the auditory nerve. Ooh, done. 1, 2, 7, 8, down. It's also known as, here's the hard term, it's called vestibulocochlear. We'll get to that when we see the actual slides. Let's do another one. Let's do 11. Oh, you know what? Let's do another one that's simpler. Stick out your tongue. Ready? And say 12. 12. So what is cranial nerve 12? Cranial nerve 12 is associated with controlling the tongue. So if I put a nerve under the tongue, I call it hypoglossal because hypo means under, glossal means tongue. So that's all it is. The function of 12 is to control the tongue with the hypoglossal nerve. Okay, we got 12 down. Let's do another one. This one's pretty easy. So we're going to do, so stick your finger in your throat and go gag. So if you look at the number 9, it looks like a letter G. And 9 is associated with gag reflex. It's called glossopharyngeal. What does that mean? If you stick your finger in the back, please don't do this at home. This is just for fun. So you stick your finger in the back, you're touching your tongue and you're touching your throat. So they call it glosso for tongue, pharyngeal for throat. So it's referencing the sensation in the back there. It also has a muscle that it controls, but we're not going to cover that. We're going to simplify it. So we got 1, 2, 7, 8, 9. Let's do 11. Say 11, ladies, your parents are a little liberal and it's your first boyfriend you've ever had. And they're like, you know what, hon, just bring her home at 11 o'clock, right? So before you get there, you're like, I have to accessorize. So I'm going to accessorize, right, with some nice, pretty jewelry around my neck. I need to accessorize. So what time did you have to be home? You had to be home by 11 o'clock, right? And what is the name of cranial nerve 11? It's called accessory. And where do you accessorize? You accessorize around your neck. So it controls two muscles in the neck. It controls the, I don't know, let's trap a fly. There, right? So it's called the trapezius. And then what's the one in the front? The one in the front right here that allows you to do this and this is called sternocleidomastoid. Let's put it into some kind of clinical assessment. So if I wanted to test cranial nerves, how would I test cranial nerve 11? You put your hand on the side and tell them push against it. If there's weakness, then there might be some kind of deficit in cranial nerve 11. Woohoo! And then didn't we do this? We said the brainstem had different parts, and so after we're done with all of this, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the brainstem, and we're going to name the different parts of the brainstem, and then talk about the different nerves that come from each, and then how, if they get damaged, what you're going to see in deficit. Oh, you guys would know all this stuff, especially if you're going into medicine and anything. It could be PT, physical therapy. It could be even kinesiology. At some point, you're going to have to deal with cranial nerves. And then it also could be nursing and medicine as a physician. Pharmacist, you're not going to deal with, but that's okay. Almost everybody else. So cranial nerve 11. Good. We got 9, we got 11, 12, 1, 2. Let's do a boring one because we had so much fun so far. So there's muscles that control the eye. And I will show you the muscles that control the eye are cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6. So there's a little mnemonic. It almost looks like a chemical equation. That's the reason they came up with this. 3, 4, and 6. So it's SO4, LR6, A3. And it's just something you have to memorize. These are the only 3 you have to memorize this way. Everything else is through some kind of fun mnemonic or fun activity that I'm doing online. So superior oblique, cranial nerve 4, lateral rectus, cranial nerve 6. All other muscles of the eye, cranial nerve 3. How do we play around with this? So guys are not very sly. If the girlfriend's on the left and there's a hot chick on the right, they turn their head. Okay, so guys, you have to learn to be sly, right? Hey, bro, do you sin? You got to remember, if you're going to sin, you're going to need to use a little bit more slyness on your cheating muscle, right? So here we go, the lateral rectus. The sly, cheating eye is the one that helps you to check out a chick while she's walking by. Did I just rhyme? Okay, so lateral rectus is found on the side of the eye, and it helps you do this. Okay, it pulls your eye to the side. So same thing for the other side. So lateral rectus was controlled by what cranial nerve? Hey, bro, do you sin? Hey, bro, do you sin? Abducens, I see you. So horrible. Cranial nerve 6 is called abducens. Hey, bro, do you sin? Abducens nerve controls the lateral rectus, which is your cheating muscle, right? So, hey, bro, do you sin? And it controls the lateral rectus, the cheating muscle. That one's done. That one's easy. So, cranial nerve 4. So this is the funniest thing. I have friends and neighbors that have trucks, and they're from Texas, and they transplanted their trucks. And so one day I looked in the back of the truck, and I was looking at the license plate, and I was like, really? So you don't know it's a truck, so you have to put on the license plate truck? So not the word, not the license number, but on the actual license plate, it says truck. So on a truck, you must have the word truck, so everybody knows that it's a truck. Funny as, I can't say the word because we're being recorded. But how do you spell truck, right? So my accent is not that great when it comes to this, but I'm going to try. Do you want to go trucking? Let's go and find a truck. How do you spell truck? T-R-U-K. 4 doors, four tires on the truck. T-R-U-K. So cranial nerve 4 is called truck. Lear. It's actually called trochlear. Trochlear. But how do I remember? I remember 4-door, 4-tire truck. 4 letters for the word truck. It's cranial nerve 4. And what does it control? It controls the superior oblique. So the superior oblique is found above, and it helps to roll your eye down because it's almost like grabbing a ball and pulling it. It's the way that they pull it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I can see it, but I don't want to confuse you guys. So we're going to keep it simply to superior oblique is controlled by cranial nerve number 4, which is also known as trochlear. So we have 2 muscles memorized. So if I damage the trochlear nerve, then I damage the ability to move the superior oblique. What about abducens? If I damage the abducens, right, by having a tumor or some kind of compression on it, then I don't have movement of lateral rectus. And guys, you can't cheat with those cheating muscles, right? So your eye will actually turn inward. So if I have this, let's say on this side of the eye, the lateral rectus is weak, right? So it causes the eye to move inward this way. That's called medial strabismus, for those of you that go into medicine in the future. For my class, don't even remember what that word was. Don't rewind. So everything else in the eye is controlled by oculomotor, right? So oculomotor must be number 3. So cranial nerve number 3 is oculo, meaning eye, motor, meaning move. So these are all the muscles that move the eye, except for lateral rectus and superior oblique. Yes, we had to be boring, and this is what it is. So I'm going to test you really quickly. If it's superior oblique, what cranial nerve number? 4. If it's lateral rectus, 6. If it's inferior rectus, 3. If it's medial rectus, 3. If it's superior rectus, 3. If it's inferior oblique, 3. If it's superior oblique, 4. If it's lateral rectus, 6. So you get it? Here's the pattern. If it's not lateral rectus and it's not superior oblique, it must just be oculomotor. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. What is missing? There's only 2. So which one am I going to have fun with first? Okay, I can't even do number 10 on this. Okay, so here's how we're going to try and do it. So I have relatives that are of Japanese descent, and in Hawaii we only have 7 islands, but they tend to travel to the 8th island of Hawaii, and we all know, if you're from Hawaii, you kind of know what the 8th island is. It's someplace where you gamble. It's called Vegas. So it's a very typical place, and so my sister-in-law, her mom used to go quite often, right? So this is a general trend. Love to, if you have extra time and you're tired, you're gonna go to Vegas. So here's this old woman, right? And let's say that we're not gonna say my sister-in-law's mom. We're just gonna use somebody else that is not mobile, can barely walk, but they're gonna get on a plane and they're gonna go to Vegas, right? So they're in their walker. I know I can't simulate. This is not so easy. So they're in their walker and they're getting on a plane, they're traveling to Vegas, right? And when they get to Vegas, they're so excited. Let's say back in the day, they used to have these things called quarters. And then these quarters would be put into this thing called a slot machine. And so they're walking up to the slot machine. They can barely make it to the slot machine. And I'm narrating this whole thing because it takes so long, right? So they're walking over to the slot machine. And eventually they get there. And we're still going to walk over to the slot machine because it takes that long. And so they put the quarter inside the slot machine. And they put the quarter inside the slot machine. Put it in. They pull the handle. Cha-ching! Yay! Woohoo! They hit the jackpot. 10, baby, 10, right? So cranial nerve 10, what is it also called? It's called vagus. And what is it also known as? It's known as the traveling nerve. Where does it travel? Not to Vegas. We already said that. So cranial nerve 10 is called vagus. It's a traveling nerve. It's actually part of the parasympathetic nervous system. It travels throughout the internal organs and it controls things like the heart. It controls things like the lungs, the digestive tract. So we said parasympathetic is the brake. And maybe you guys haven't heard it yet, but we're going to remember that as parasympathetic is the brake. However, when it comes to digestion, it's the gas. So whenever you have rest and digest, if you're sitting down, you're eating, parasympathetic will stimulate through cranial nerve 10. It'll stimulate the digestive tract to be active. What's going to happen to your breathing? What's going to happen to your heart rate? Where you're sitting down, you don't need to breathe hard. You don't need to have a high heart rate. So it actually steps on the brake and slows the heart rate down. It slows down the breathing as well. And